My name is Joclyn Krevat. I'm 35 years old. About 3 years ago, I became very sick. I was working as an occupational therapist at a nursing home, and I felt like I had the flu. That feeling of having the flu turned into, I thought maybe I had pneumonia. As it turned out, I had developed a very rare autoimmune condition called giant cell myocarditis, which causes end-stage heart failure. I was rushed via ambulance from my doctor's office to New York Presbyterian Hospital, where I was worked up in the emergency room, and I was transferred to the cardiac intensive care unit, where I stayed for 7 weeks. I was hooked up to pumps that did the work of my heart for me because my heart wasn't working, and I was told that I would die without a heart transplant. I was put on the heart transplant list, and about 7 weeks later, a heart became available at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital, where I was rushed via ambulance, brought into their emergency room, into their ICU. Until a few hours later, I had the heart transplant surgery. I recovered there for a couple of weeks, and then I went home. A couple of weeks after that, I started receiving bills. As it turns out, the insurance situation wasn't what we thought it was. We went into this thinking that that was an aspect of this whole terrible ordeal that we wouldn't have to think about. My husband had just changed careers, and he was a first-year New York City teacher. New York City teachers supposedly have fantastic insurance. Empire Blue Cross for hospitals and GHI for what I thought was outpatient doctors. As it turns out, the doctors at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital don't work for the hospital. They have formed their own company called Columbia Doctors LLC, and they don't accept what Blue Cross pays as payment for their services. They bill separately, and they bill as though I selected them, that I looked through a book and I said, I want to go to that doctor, and I walked into his office and I willfully ignored the insurance participation. So none of those doctors take GHI. And as it turns out, no heart transplant surgeon in the United States takes GHI. So I received a bill for the surgeon and for the assistant surgeon totaling $70,000. And that $70,000 quickly went into collection. And I found myself at home recovering from a heart transplant, and now also faced with the full-time job, this full-time nightmare of dealing with these medical bills that were coming every day. I was getting letters from lawyers, and I would call it seemed like it was a mistake. Nobody even believed us. We would tell our friends, and everybody said, no, teachers have great insurance, the bills will stop. But they didn't stop. Every time I called GHI to see what the deal was, I would get a different person on the phone. Same thing if I called the billing department. I would get a different person. No one had ever made any record that I'd been calling, and I would have to start the whole story from scratch, like I'm doing now. And GHI's helpful advice was, well, you should have picked in-network doctors. And the hospital billing department pretty much said, well, sometimes our doctors don't take your insurance. Now, when we went into the hospital, when our insurance cards were photocopied, no one said anything about, well, we're going to put a sign on your door so you don't get screwed, so non-participating doctors don't come in. I still don't really understand how that happened, because I was in a participating hospital. So something needs to change. I mean, I have a master's degree, and I had the luxury of being able to stay at home and recover rather than, have to go back to work right away. I don't know what somebody would do who didn't have that luxury. I would sit with Microsoft Excel every day and try to figure out how to deal with this. I would make my calls, and GHI, when you see a non-participating provider, mails the payment for that doctor visit to the subscriber. So I had all these checks from GHI made out to me, or made out to my husband, and then I would have to sit and figure out which doctor it would get mailed to. And of course the amount from GHI never matched the billed amount. And it was just horrible. And I think that it seems very shady, and I think this needs to be regulated somehow. And something needs to change, so no one else has to deal with worrying about losing everything and going bankrupt as somebody with health insurance. We sort of figured maybe we would have been better off if we didn't have insurance, because this was an absolute nightmare.